All right, welcome everybody to the latest and final episode of the AI Revolution podcast. Because next week we are moving to a new name. Starting with our next episode, we will be known as the AI Rebels podcast. Jake, do you want to talk a little bit about why we chose that name?
Yeah, I would love to. We've been thinking about this a lot. We've talked about it with several guests that we've had on the show.
Pretty
Um,
much since we started the show.
yeah. It's just been this. Do we go high level with the AI revolution? Because that's something we really want to focus on and highlight is this overall revolution worldwide, economically, just in every facet of life.
Socially,
There's this,
culturally, yeah.
social, everything. It changes everything. And so we were like, okay, let's go high level. AI revolution. That's what we're talking about. But as we've dug into it with these guests and all that we're learning, we're realizing that the revolution really wouldn't exist and isn't going anywhere without the individuals. And so then we started thinking, symbolically, or however you want to say, those individuals fueling a revolution, we're in the United States. Let's go back to the American Revolution, right? They were rebels. They were rebels against the established norm, right? What in that sense, it was the government. They were rebels against the king, and the rebels fueled the revolution. Without those individuals, the revolution wouldn't have gone anywhere. And we've realized that that's what we want to highlight. We want to highlight these rebels fueling the revolution from the grassroots up. And so we're super excited to we've been doing this anyway, but we're going to pivot even more so to really focus on these individuals, these rebels fueling the AI revolution.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of people talking about AI at the macro scale, how it's affecting society and whatnot. But we've just found that what we're interested in is telling the micro stories of this particular individual found a lot of utility in using AI at work is a story that we're interested in telling, because it's those little changes that add up over time and make the movement, and make the revolution.
Yeah. So keep a lookout. There'll be some more messaging and things like that. Branding
Mm-hmm.
won't change too much, but our focus and name are shifting a little bit.
All right, yeah, but yeah, so look out for that branding change. We'll post about it on Twitter. Like Jake said, it's not too drastic of a shift. We're basically just going to swap the name on our logo,
Mm-hmm.
and on our accounts. But yeah,
So
moving
nobody
on from there,
panic.
let's just yeah, don't panic. We're still going to be around.
That's right.
But other than that, let's see. So this last week we saw, was it this week that GPT-4o released?
I think it
Or
was
was
just
that the
this week.
previous week? Yeah, let's see.
What is time?
GPT-4o release date, May 13th. Yeah, so it was this week,
Yeah, just
or
one
last
week
week.
ago.
Yeah, 1 week ago. OpenAI launched GPT-4o, and it's very impressive. They announced a couple features for it that are not available yet. Specifically, they have real-time video and voice capabilities, that are highly advanced compared to what we've seen before. And those abilities are not available yet in the app or in the API, but they should be rolling out over the next few weeks. But I've already dove in and played with GPT-4o a lot, and I am very impressed with it. It is, incredibly fast, and very, very close to GPT-4 in overall performance. I'd say that there's some areas in which it's better, and others in which I've found that it's not quite as good. Jake, have you had a
Mm-hmm.
chance to play with it yet?
Yeah, I've been playing with it a little bit, and I think what the biggest thing that stuck out to me was the speed. I was just like, this is
It's
lightning,
mind
man.
blowing.
This is crazy. And just it's more diverse. It can do more. Um, but I'm curious, Spencer. I know you've played with it and you've kind of been thinking about what's going on there, especially for those like less technical. Maybe highlight like what's the big deal here? Like what's going on?
So GPT-4o is a big deal because it's OpenAI's first fully multimodal model. So it's not just a language model. It's a transformer model still, just like the original GPT. But instead of being trained only across text data, it's now been trained with voice, text, video. Who knows what else they threw in there? But those are kind of the big three.
Yeah.
And so it means that it can natively translate like a text token to an image token, etc. And so once the new image and audio and video capabilities come out, you'll be able to generate images, for example, within GPT-4o without the use of DALL-E 3 at all. It will be just GPT-4o doing the image generation, which is it's pretty remarkable. And the level of performance that they're getting from all of these different modalities of output is shockingly high, almost terrifyingly so. And so it's a huge advance in that sense. And another thing that really stands out about it is the fact that it comes so close to GPT-4 in performance, which up until now is still like the strongest performing model out there. Now GPT-4o I think is technically the strongest performing model based on the benchmarks and stuff, but I don't really care about the benchmarks. I care about how it feels to use.
Right.
And so there's a lot of kind of speculation around GPT-4o and how it's so fast while still being so close to GPT-4 in performance. And so the more and more that I've used it, the opinion that I've come to is that it's actually a significantly smaller model than GPT-4, which would explain how it's so fast. But what's really impressive is if it is indeed a smaller model than GPT-4 itself, to get the same performance as GPT-4 with a much smaller model, like OpenAI did something, like there's some secret sauce that they threw in there. And I'm really excited to see the next iteration of GPT-4o and see how much it can improve. Because it's already incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's nuts when you think about that leap to like a multimodal model. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's reading and seeing at this point. Like right? It sees it and it's like, that's a red apple. You know what I mean? Like off of an image. It's nuts.
It's really bizarre. Let me pull up one of their demos just so we can show it on screen.
Oh my gosh, some of those demos are nuts. Yeah, it's very exciting of what's capable. Also terrifying for a lot of those indie image generators out there. They're shaking in their boots right now.
Beanboard is dead.
Yeah. Watch out. Luckily, Yassine's the man and can pivot, but man, let's get. Oh, nice. There you go.
Hang on. Let's redo this. Okay. Here we go.
Rita John 78 who asks, can you tell what you're feeling just by looking at your face? Barrett, you want to give this one a try?
Absolutely. Let's try it out. Hey, ChatGPT.
Hey there. What's up? How can I brighten your day today?
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to show you a selfie of what I look like, and then I'd like you to try to see what emotions I'm feeling based on how I'm looking.
Sounds like a fun challenge. Go ahead and show me that selfie, and I'll put my emotional detective hat on.
Okay, so here's me. So what kind of emotions do you think I'm feeling?
It seems like I'm looking at a picture of a wooden surface.
Oh, you know what? That was the thing I sent you before. Don't worry, I'm not actually a table. Okay, so take another look.
That makes more sense. There we go. It looks like you're feeling pretty happy and cheerful, with a big smile and maybe even a touch of excitement. Whatever's going on, it seems like you're in a great mood. Care to share the source of those good vibes?
Yeah, no, the reason I'm in a really good mood is because we were doing a presentation showcasing how useful and amazing you are.
Anyways.
That's wild.
It is. It's it's super crazy. And they got some wizards over there.
Yeah, someone casting some wild spells.
Yeah, so I can't wait for those capabilities to come out, so we can try them out. So Google had it demoed something that they claimed was similar last year with Gemini, and those capabilities still have not been released to the public. So
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that OpenAI has a faster release
Yeah,
schedule
hopefully
for
they
these things.
didn't just announce it, and then we'll take a year. Hopefully it's pretty much there and they're just, taking some time.
Yeah, exactly. But I can understand why, because from my memory, the reason that they gave for holding these particular capabilities back a bit is for safety testing out in the wild.
Right.
They announced that they're going to give them to a few trusted partners first. And as annoying as I find that, it also makes sense.
Yeah, probably for the
right.
best.
Like these are
Yeah.
exactly. Like we're starting to get into territory where it's getting truly a bit spooky.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's
so
like they just created this. It's like for example, I lived in Washington State for a while, and they graft
Yeah.
apple trees, right? And they create new apples by grafting these trees together, and
Right.
like crossing lines of DNA. And it's literally like a new not species, but a new apple, right? And it's almost like they just created this whole new thing, and they're like, all right, let's not set this creature loose on the world before we see what it'll
Test it
do.
out first.
Yeah, so it's it's for the best, frustrating, and I want it now, but it makes sense. It's like this whole new animal that's just like, let's try to house train this thing first.
No, exactly. And the other thing that just keeps standing out to me about GPT-4o again is the speed across everything. Like it's not just fast on text. At least assuming that the demos that they showed off are true to life in terms of how fast they are, which they have claimed that is the case. They have claimed that all of the demos they showed were shown at 1x real time. So assuming that they're not just straight up lying to our faces, the speed is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, what do you think all these, I kind of said it jokingly, but like these indie image generators, I mean, there's so many of them that have just kind of piggybacked on, other tools like ChatGPT, whatever. Do you think they're just kind of done?
Yeah, I think they're dead. Let
me. Yeah, I mean, what else?
Let me pull up an example.
How do you compete? Like, you can't, right?
Yeah, and like they're getting more and more steerable every day too. Let me see if I can find the. Here we go. So Greg Brockman, who works at OpenAI, I don't remember what his job title is there, but he's up there in the hierarchy. He posted this picture of a GPT-4o generated image, and
I can't even.
This is insane. This is insane.
Like the consistent handwriting, like all the details. Like look at the little note over in the bottom left corner of that graph. It's just like
the only thing that I see on here that looks slightly weird is this X right here. But other than that, like it's getting spooky out there. In the best way possible.
Yeah, we'll see. And this kind of begs the question. I know we were talking about this briefly before. Today's episode will be a little shorter, but just to kick this idea around a little bit, I'm curious with ChatGPT, they're getting all this data. I'm curious where the accountability is going to fall. They're going to release this new creature into the wild soon.
Yeah.
What if it's used in a negative way? Does that fall at ChatGPT, or could they claim, hey, this is because of the data we were given from these organizations? Pass the buck there. I think, I don't know.
I honestly think that it's going to have to come down to liability on the user's part. Because when you break it down, it's it's not that different than if someone, goes online and gets radicalized by rhetoric of some kind, right? And then goes and commits a massacre or something like that, right? You can't really, at least to my mind, like you can't go and say, hey, YouTube, like you're responsible for this.
Because you had this content, or you had this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because they and this gets into really sticky debates about, their responsibilities of platforms and et cetera. But to just use this as a naive analogy, I don't think that you can go to YouTube or Reddit and say, hey, this guy read something on your website that radicalized him. Like, you're responsible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that gets into deeper debates about, like, the distinctions between social responsibility and criminal responsibility, and when a social responsibility should be, rolled over into criminal responsibility, etc.
Right.
But for broad strokes purposes, I think that you have to hold the user accountable. Because it's not possible to create generative AI that has no potential for harm whatsoever, right? Like it's
it.
It's
like,
inherent to
possible.
intelligence.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's like, it wouldn't make sense to hold these companies too responsible for what they're doing. With that in mind, I'm sure I can come up with exceptions. Like, say for some reason OpenAI tomorrow released a model where they're like, hey, this model, like, this is explicitly for spam. Go write a bunch of spam emails with this model, right?
Yeah,
then it would be like, okay,
right,
you're doing something wrong there. But that's an extreme contrived example.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the clearest way to do it, I mean, and I think this is what world leaders are like wrestling with, right? Is like, how do we put fences around this thing, especially as it's iterating so quickly? Like 4.0 just came out, and that changes the whole landscape. Like it changes so much. But I think you're right that when it comes down to it, other than those exceptions, right? Other than a company who develops an evil ChatGPT for like harm's sake, like they do it, which I am surprised we haven't seen something like that in the news, right? Like some organization that builds something. Barring that, it seems like the individual user who's using the tool, right? ChatGPT builds this tool, and says, "Here you go. This has incredible potential." And they leave it at that. They don't say for good or bad. They say this has incredible potential to change so much. And then it's up to the user on what that looks like. And that's where I think it's a lot easier to then bring in ethics and say, okay, well, you took the tool that is, it's not going to do anything on its own. You took it and you did X with it. That's where
exactly.
the accountability falls.
It's like, because it's like the analogy that I go to is, if I go write a plan to murder somebody in my notes app, that's on me, right? Like, that's not on Apple for giving me the scratch paper to write this plan down.
Right. Exactly.
And I do think, the AI developers obviously have a responsibility to try and make sure that their models are safe. But I think that their responsibility to do that is lesser than their responsibility to just, like, put out a highly capable model. Speaking from a technological perspective.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we'll see more and more controversy around this as like when 4.0 releases these capabilities to the public, it'll be big.
And that's the other thing, like I believe that we touch on this on the podcast all the time, but the thing that concerns me most about AI is not AI itself, but that the public is not ready for it. That there are a lot of people out there who still think that AI can't draw hands, simple stuff like that. That's just not true anymore. They don't know what's coming. They don't know what's coming down the line.
No idea how fast it's iterating. They have no idea where
exactly.
Where it's at now.
And like that's I think that those of us who are interested or building with it or developing AI ourselves, like I think that we have a responsibility to try and be as loud as we can about it. Like, hey, like this
Yeah.
stuff's coming down the line. Here's how you can use it to make your life better instead of being scared of it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Just because you
Um,
put blinders on and you don't see the truck coming that knocks you out, like that's on you. Like,
yeah,
but
exactly.
we can
It's on
try to
you,
raise
but
the voice
also
and be
like,
like, hey, take off the blinders, look around.
yeah, exactly. Like
You know?
if we're on the truck or driving the truck, we can yell, we can hit the horn.
Yeah.
If they still
Yeah.
don't hear us or see us, like that's on them. But like we have a responsibility to do everything we can.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
Yeah, so I will continue speaking about that.
Yep. With the other AI rebels.
Amen. Now
That's
here's the
right.
question: would Red Lobster have gone bankrupt if they had an AI planning out their whole thing?
That's the question. Is the Red Lobster model even worth saving? That's the question too. You know, I don't know. Depends if you ask which generation.
Which generation? And I think it also depends on which state they're from, because
Yeah.
in Utah, where there's not any good seafood, probably
Mhm.
makes more sense.
Yep.
Boston, no way.
Yeah. Not
Get it
making
out of there. It lost.
Yeah, it's not even here. I haven't seen one. So yeah. No, it would be I do love seeing those the use cases that I see people doing where they're like, I use ChatGPT to plan this whole business, to plan everything about it. I
Yeah.
go to it for every decision. And a lot of them are still in progress, but I'm kind of, I'm curious where they're going to end up.
It'll be very interesting. Yeah, one more thing on GPT-4o. It is insanely good at coding. That's something that I've noticed. It really stands out there, and I've wondered how much of that is it because it has access to a broader variety of types of information.
Yeah,
like
totally.
they probably fed it a bunch of YouTube coding tutorials,
Mhm.
stuff that helps you think through things step by step rather than, just reading code from a file on GitHub, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that makes it leaps and bounds more effective.
Yeah, every day feels like magic with AI.
Yeah. I mean, once you open up past text, like now it can incorporate knowledge from all realms, basically. And so
Yeah.
it's like we opened a new door, and we're going to have to see where it goes, because a lot's going to change.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Should we call it there for this episode?
Yeah, I think
Lots
so.
of
Thanks for tuning into
random
the
thoughts.
AI Rebels podcast. We're super excited about it, and let us
We
know
are.
use cases for 4.0. If you've listened to this and you think it's not as good or it's better, we'd love to hear what's going on out there.
All right. Until next week, keep on rebelling in the free world.